Hello! In this video we will explain how the architects integrated aspects of social and cultural adequacy into the design of the 400 units housing project in Oued Souf. The project in Oued Souf is the result of collaborative efforts between the architects and the local authority and was meant to serve a wide variety of population in the region. These future inhabitants from and around Oued Souf had distinctive religious and cultural traditions, evident in their daily practices. To create a culturally sensitive design, the architects Hani and Abdelrahman El-Minyawi conducted surveys and met with some of the expected users to investigate their cultural traditions, lifestyles and spatial requirements. This was motivated by the request of the Biskra regional government. They asked to develop a preliminary conceptual design study for housing programs within the region. The result of this process was that the architects were able to determine and define an architectural program that met the standards imposed by the Housing Authority, while at the same time satisfying the requirements of the expected users. The lasting impact of French rule in Algeria is apparent in the apartment types that were proposed for the project by the Ministry of Housing. The four types put forward were F2, F3, F4 and F5, where the number indicates the number of closed rooms. These types were similar to the ones used in social housing schemes in France at the time. Following the conceptual design studies, the El-Minyawi brothers proposed modification to this program, as it seemed to be standardized and did not relate to the social-cultural backgrounds of the expected inhabitants. The architect's intention was to introduce an environment that was similar to the one the inhabitants were used to. And they proposed to reduce the surface of the closed rooms and added 10% more floor area in order to realize a domestic space that incorporated people's socio-cultural needs. For example, a guest room was added with direct access from the entrance to create privacy. In addition, 2 patios were inserted, one with a central position and directly connected to the family room, and the other one called Haring, or the women's patio, with a direct link to the kitchen. In this way, different levels of privacy were integrated in the design of the individual units to accommodate the local traditions of this Muslim community. The courtyard or patio is a very important feature in traditional Muslim dwelling architecture and functions as an open-air room, with privacy for female members of the family, but also as a space organizer and climate moderator. The El-Minyawi brothers experimented with integrating the concept of the courtyard into multi-level housing before, for example by adding patios in the floor plan of their housing project in Msila. The overall massing of the complex also responds to the cultural needs of the inhabitants. The extensive and dense use of domes, vaults and arcades reflects the vernacular language of the old town of Oued Souf. The buildings are finished with sand-colored plaster, a feature that complements the natural environment. The use of these design tools has strong cultural roots and reflects a distinguished visual heritage of the region. Now let us move to another factor that is strongly linked with socio-cultural adequacy: community engagement. On the urban scale, the staggered units and the proximity of the clusters next to each other contributed to the idea of developing hierarchical spaces. From the surrounding streets, one can access the public squares, and the narrow streets between the clusters lead to slightly wider roads that connect a sequence of entrance areas, where the blocks can be accessed through an open staircase. These shared stairwells are places where neighbors can meet and socialize. Underneath the stairwells, semi-public passages have been created to connect the clusters with the parallel roads. They are framed with an arcade to mark that a more private space is entered. This social fabric of public squares, narrow shaded streets, semi-public alleys and shared staircases that follow a hierarchy of privacy provides lots of opportunities for social interaction in a manner appropriate to the users. And finally, let us analyze how the project includes aspects of social inclusion. Social cultural adequacy in housing design entails ensuring accessibility for residents of all ages, gender, abilities and socio-economic backgrounds. Moreover, housing design should be flexible and adaptable to accommodate the changing needs of residents over time. The project in Wetsoef addresses the socio-economic differences of people by incorporating dwelling types that vary in size and therefore also in the rental price. Although the project was carefully designed for future residents from the region, it did not incorporate the needs of elderly or people with disabilities. Almost all dwellings are only accessible by stairs, which is a burden for people that have difficulties to use them. Nowadays the homes are no longer rentals but owner-occupied homes. As a result, over the years many of the residents started to alter the dwelling units and build extensions to provide for more room and to accommodate their changing needs. In parts of the neighborhood, several new activities like shops and offices were added to the ground floor. Although the project did not consider alterations and additions on forehand, the varied massing of the project absorbed the extensions quite successfully. To conclude, one can say that the 400 units housing project sets an example and illustrates the importance of integrating social and local cultural aspects when designing affordable mass housing.